Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first action item is changes to the adopted budget with Mr. Khan.
Thank you, President Knaxted, members of the board, Superintendent Young. OAI 1 are basically budget transfers or changes to the adopted budget in order to enact the following item, which is your second interim. These are required transfers just so that the system will balance out once you approve second interim. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any public comments on this? Okay, board, do you have any comments, concerns? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve OAI 1.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a first and second. Do we have electronic voting or no?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go for your vote.
Oh, mine's not working.
Ah, see? I got one.
Mine's not coming on either. What did I do wrong?
Pretty loaded question.
I'm doing it again. Oh, wait, now we're good.
Okay, and it passes 7-0. Okay, other action item number 2, again, Mr. Khan.
Thank you, President Knaxted, members of the board, Superintendent Young, and thank you for allowing us to present this during the special board meeting. There were issues with our QSS system that prevented this from coming at the last meeting. Michael, would you open up the PowerPoint? And as is my tradition, I'll go through this quickly, but I'm certainly willing and able to answer any questions about any item that's attached. Let's go to 3 of 7 of the PowerPoint. This is a typical picture we're getting used to, descending line from the upper left to the lower right in both our enrollment and our ADA projections. The next slide. The top line is your LCFF revenue. You'll hear a lot about that tonight. I will note that in your second interim, there is no adjustment or projection for any potential revenue decline. We're all very well aware of the governor's January budget and all the implications. I will note that in November, LAO indicated a $68 billion revenue shortfall over 2 years. Governor's budget in January reduced that to $38 billion. And then in February, the LAO issued a report that said the number's now counting at negative 73 billion.
Well,
I think the most important part of the February LAO release is the almost explicit statement that there is virtually no opportunity that the LAO can see to somehow delay a $15 billion reduction in the Prop 98 guarantee. If a $15 billion or any reduction occurs in the Prop 98 guarantee, this revenue line will shift down in the out years. Alrighty? That's an important thing to remember as we go into May revise, and also that there is none of that projection in the report you're looking at tonight. I'd like to move on to the state report, if I may, unless there are any questions about the PowerPoint. All right, Mike, if you go to the state report, and it's page 35 of the 165.
First one. Right now. Thank you.
It's the big SACS report.
What was the page number?
35 of 165.
35.
35 of 165. This is my first go-to on any financial statement that a school district presents. This is the multi-year projection. It is the item that speaks to whether or not you are positively certified, qualified, or negative. In this report, the board is still very healthy, the board's finances are still very healthy. This is a positive certification report. You'll note that we've got 4 years, the current year, which is 23-4, the following year, and following year. By GASB rules and AB 1200, we do not have to project third year out, the fourth column over. We've begun doing that just because it makes sense to look, especially when you're in a cash burn profile. And again, I'll remind the board, there is no projection in this document that will adjust revenue for what may be coming our way in May. Also, not in the expenditure side of this is the compensation increases that the board has before the bargaining units, with the exception of the LUSG, LUSDA, and LPPA settlements. All right, they did make it into this. All in, including those 3 units, the board has on the table better than $35 million going out this year that isn't entirely in this document. And then that equates to an additional approximately $18 million a year thereafter. So when you calculate that 117 million ending fund balance in the lower right-hand corner will adjust down to below 50 million at the current rate of burn. So you'll be slightly below 10% in your total reserves and roughly the equivalent in unrestricted reserves. We've always viewed a 10% unrestricted reserve as an absolute bare minimum. Ms. Alexander, I think you asked that question many moons ago, but that's sort of your fail-safe level. At least that would be my advice to the superintendent. Again, if there's any type of revenue reduction in the year or two to come, that will push your reserves down further. All right. I'll also note that you're starting to run out of your grant money, your ESSERs, your ELOPs, CARES money. You can see the effect of that if you look at current year unrestricted certificated salaries. You'll see a number of 133.1 million. Then you go forward to the next year and you see 144 million. There are over 65 FTE that will be moving from restricted in primarily the ESSER grant into unrestricted in your next year. So that dynamic is going to be occurring as well. You're going to start burning more unrestricted cash because of that effect of having some of these hires during the grant years actually move back into your unrestricted cash. All righty. The good news, obviously, is that the board's been very conservative and has managed its books extremely well. And you have a strong balance sheet to face whatever's coming. The bad news is whatever might come. Again, this does represent a positive certification, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this? Ms. Wilkins.
Thank you. Okay, I am looking at the first attachment, the state reports I am on page 3. Expenditures, line 4, books and supplies. Right now, they say it's grown by 24.5%. Right now they say, yeah.
It's the first number here.
Yep, okay, all right, thank you. That it's grown by 24.5%. There's $38,560,514. Well, I find this really interesting because, like, I've taken a few college courses this year. Textbooks at an average are about $200 a piece. That would buy 590,000, using a different number, 192,800 textbooks at $200 a piece. Chromebooks are about $300 for a decent one, and this is retail, this is not wholesale, which I'm sure, which is what our district would pay. We could buy 128,602 Chromebooks for that amount of money. That's 4 times as many students as we have in our district, more than 4 times. So it seems to me that some of this unrestricted funds that are in here could be used in other places, including to give fair contracts to some of our bargaining groups. So I have poured over budgets since I became active in LEA, and I know when the shell game is going on and money is being hidden. So here's some money that could be going to give our CSEA folks a better break, give them something that's equitable to what the supervisors and what the principals got, and the same for LEA, to make us competitive with districts around us. I don't know if you guys know this, but right now, Lincoln Unified is giving bonuses of up to $10,000, not only for teachers, but for bus drivers, to go and join them. And I'm already talking to some members who are telling me they are probably going to leave because their salaries are better. Their benefits are about the same, but their salaries are better. And they have a board that's willing to work with them. So I think you guys need to really look at this and find out where the hidey holes are. Thank you.
Sure, ask.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Wilkins, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I was just wanting a clarification, which line item were you on?
So I am looking at the report that says the state interim report, second interim report. It says the state one. I went to page 3. Well, okay. At the general fund
Page 7
combined.
of 165.
Yeah, page 7 of 165 if you're looking at it electronically, sorry. So it's page 3 of the general fund combined, and it's under expenditures B, line item 4, books and supplies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right, any other public comments? And board comments?
Yes,
Mr. Knowledge?
next, I want to thank Leonard and his staff for keeping us above board. All this report is going to the San Joaquin County Board of Education, President.
Yes, well, through the county Office of Education.
Yes, and I think every year that you've been here, we've been pretty good. So we're not in the hole and we're not overspending. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. President.
Sure.
I'd like to thank Vakeshni Dial for your interim budget director for putting this together. And of course, your senior director controller, April Horace, for supporting her.
All right, any other board comments? Okay, I need a motion to approve this budget.
I'm so moved,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Nava, moved. Second, from
Second.
Paul. Okay, board vote then. Oops, gotta get out of this.
Thank you.
Okay, and The budget passes 7-0. With that, I'm going to adjourn this special meeting to go to the next special meeting. Where we meet?
You're gonna stay right
Oh,
where you
we're
are,
here, okay.
so.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to adjourn this one, then we can go right into the study session, but we'll be inviting some people to come up to the table
Yes.
as part of that.
All right. So then, I'm calling the study session to order. We still have 7 board members. We've already done the flag salute, so we're ready to start the study session. First up is the LCAP overview with Dr. Solid.
Let's give us a moment to bring everybody up.
Yeah, so.
Oh, okay.
As we begin this meeting, I'm going to invite all the guests who are representing our different groups and also parents
Okay.
to come join us. We have Lisa Wilkins, who is representing Lodi Education Association. I haven't seen Eric, oh I do, Eric Sandstrom is representing the administrators. Natalie Scots is here, part of our, oh, there you are. If you'll come up and have a seat. And I'm, Gabby Vasquez is here as well, representing the supervisors. Belinda Yates is here, representing your California School of Employees Association, CSCA. And I want to make sure, do you go as Gerardo or Gerardo? Gerardo. Okay, Laura is part of the DLAC group. Bobby Abel-Smith is here representing LPPA. Michelle Jensen is here, and she is representing our mental health therapists. And you may recognize Michelle Armstrong, who is representing the confidential group. And of course, both Dr. Robert Solly and Jennifer Harris are here as well to take you through this process. So I give it back to you.
Okay. So, well, we're ready to start with, I think, Dr. Solly with an overview of what we're talking about tonight.
Thank you, President Nalva, members of the board, President Maxted, members of the board, and Superintendent Young, and our guests. Thank you for participating. The men and women around the tables have participated in some community input sessions and survey input sessions and so forth to collect input on what they see as important for our district. The LCAP, as Mr. Leonard just described, Mr. Khan, is presented the numbers. This is the narration of how those numbers will be expended. And there are, as with every year, it seems there are changes to the LCAP structure and regulations and rules and such. Could you maybe go to the next slide, please, Michael? And we're gonna get into that a little bit. There's some different goals adjustments that we actually made and added a goal for last year that's being embedded into the other goals backwards sort of this year. Some expenditure tables and metrics we're going to be discussing. Next slide, please. The general feedback from all of our groups has relatively been consistent from coming out of COVID. They're interested in certainly supporting our academic needs, our behavioral needs, our mental health support needs, and always seeking more community and parental input. Campus safety is always a concern. So those will be summarized a little bit later as well. Next slide, please. And so there's several documents that are also attached to this agenda item online and in the binders before you. And Ms. Harris will be walking through some of those, the largest of which is the actual LCAP from this current existing year. We're really not going to get into that too much unless somebody has questions. We'll be focusing in on the documents towards the end. But really the purpose, again, just to summarize what this plan is, every year we meet to discuss our plan of action on how to spend those funds. As Mr. Khan alluded to, we have to plan without knowing exactly what the budget is, so some of these numbers will change once we get a final budget in June. And this plan will come to you again in June and in July. It's required to come together with the final budget and the final LCAP plan at the end of June. This session here is really our final input time. Ms. Harris has met individually with various groups, but this is a collective time to meet with the members and the board to get your input, to take your input. This is really, we're here to listen today, answer questions, and we'd like your comments and input in the board's direction moving forward. We had a brief agenda item on this back in January. If you'll remember, we were talking about staffing positions we wanted to secure, and Mr. Khan alluded to that already, but we're moving staffing from ESSER funds into some of our other budget funds, as well as we have been paying attention to attrition through that process as well. We knew that going in with ESSER, that if we were going to hire staffing, we had to work our way out of it as well or find another funding source. We are dealing with that in part through this LCAP as well. So tonight's a listening session, and we seek your direction. In June, we'll come back to you with a recommended LCAP plan along with the budget. So we're here to listen again, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Harris to walk you through this.
Hello, President Knackstead, Superintendent Young, members of the board, and our wonderful educational partners. I want to thank you for your time today. Your input is so valuable to me, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say to help guide me toward writing our LCAP. So I'm going to walk you through the binder that we created. First off, I want to make sure that I thank Chrissy, our admin assistant. She so kindly put all these binders together for us, and I want to make sure that she is recognized for that hard work, and she's here tonight. So the first section, you'll find a district overview of our LCAP. In addition, the board members have the full LCAP so that you can look through that at your leisure. And then I want you to go to the first tab. So I thought it was important to make sure you understood the regulation and requirement changes. This is not all encompassing. These are just a few things that have changed that I think really impact the way that we write an LCAP and the way we look at goals and actions. The mid-year update, as you know, happened this year. I was able to present you with that information. That will be ongoing. So every year we'll be looking at our LCAP halfway through the year, looking at how we're spending money, how we're achieving our goals, our progress on our actions. So that is something that will continue. Goal changes. We now have eliminated our goal 4. That will now be embedded. So what you'll see within our goal are a lot of our metrics will have subgroups in them. So as opposed to writing a whole new goal, we'll be writing, we'll have metrics and actions that will really address the subgroups within them rather than writing the same thing twice, but kind of being a little more specific in goal 4. Instead, they're going to be embedded, which I think makes for a much cleaner LCAP. I think this is a wonderful adjustment. In addition, though, you'll be seeing several new goals. So something new that's happening this year is called the LCFF Equity Multiplier. So school sites that have a 25% or more non-stability rate, so that means that they have students that don't stay more than, I believe, 245 days on a regular basis. So obviously, if you start thinking about it, you'll see our continuation schools fall under this. You'll see independence, schools that are meant to actually have non-stability. That's one indicator, and the other way you qualify is through 70% or more socioeconomically disadvantaged. So if you meet those 2 indicators, you qualify. We have that list. It's really new, and with it comes a lot of funding, but it's very restrictive funding. So I've reached out to those administrators and let them know what their allocation will be, but that will actually be within our LCAP. So that is something that is very different. The plan will be central, and then as the school maybe leaves the equity multiplier, their actions and their goal will remain there even if they're no longer there. So that is a huge change. Another huge change is we will be citing school. Yes.
I have a quick question. Does that also apply to the schools that have, as you're going through this high minority turnover? In other words, they're here for seasons, and I can think of 2 schools in my area. So would that be an automatic qualifier? Because I don't think you would get to that. We'd be right at the cusp of the days.
Yes, so Live Oak is an equity multiplier site. Okay. Independence, Liberty, Plaza Robles, and Trinidad. And so
these are all Title I schools. Is that right?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. No, because our Title I threshold is higher than 70%. And so they could actually become an equity multiplier school without being a Title I school. But I believe they are aligned at this point, but it could be a time where that did not. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
And so you'll see each of those sites or sites that are similar with similar needs will be grouped together in a focused goal. And then all the actions within there will have to be evidence-based, supplemental, they can't supplant anything. They're nice, hefty budgets, but they are very restrictive resources. And then another thing that you'll see is within our goals and our actions, we will actually be citing schools. So schools that are performing in the red when we're looking at our indicators that are at that lowest rung in any subgroup will be identified by name within our LCAP. I've let our administrators know that will be the case. I've talked about what that means because that is a shift. We've always been very LEA-wide when we're doing an LCAP, and it's actually drilling down to very site-specific data, and that is something that is definitely a change. So you'll see that coming through within our LCAP, and actions might be dedicated to specific sites or groups of sites. Similar sites will be grouped together because that makes the most sense and makes for a most efficient LCAP. Other things you'll see is any action that is not effective after 3 years may not remain. So one thing we've not done in the past is actually had a metric tied to an action. And I think this is a wonderful change because we should be looking for growth. We should be looking for our actions to be effective. So now when there's an action within our LCAP, there has to be a metric tied to it. So you'll see some changes when we're looking at our actions where there's a metric or some rewording so that we're actually measuring what the action is. Because we were able to do it more loosely before, and now we have to deem if it is indeed effective. And if it is ineffective after 3 years, starting this year, we cannot keep that action as is. Now, this does not pertain to something that's required. So we have some items that are federally required within our LCAP. It doesn't pertain to those. It pertains to the actions that are supplemental. So if we deem it to be ineffective, we can't keep doing it, which is great because we should be looking for something to be effective over time. So you have 3 years to make it work. And then as we're looking at things mid-year and at the end of each year, we should be looking at how we're progressing, how implementation is so that we're able to address that, to adjust that. And then finally, you will see more about LTEL. So those are our long-term English learners. We'll have some actions and some metrics regarding our long-term English learners. There's other items that are new, but those were really the things I wanted to make sure we highlighted. Yes.
First of all, I do want to thank again, Jennifer's done a wonderful job. You can see there's a full page of changes. The local control accountability plan is a template that we follow, and sometimes the local doesn't feel so local. The boxes are prescribed for us, but there's a lot of changes this year, so it'll look a little different when you work through it. And as she mentioned, some schools will be specifically called out. I've done that in the past. It's a requirement to do that. But there's quite a few changes this year, and I do want to thank Jennifer. She's done a really good job unpeeling this onion.
Are there any questions about changes before I move on to the next section? All right, the next thing you will see behind the little blue paper is just our state priorities, so you know what we're referencing when we talk about state priorities. I'm not going to go through them. We're just required to hit on each of those except for the last two because those are county priorities and not school priorities. So I'd like you to look at the data. When we met, or maybe a board meeting I watched, I heard a request for data side by side. So I went ahead and put this together so you could look at each year on one page. So you'll see the state priority number. Then I assign each metric a number so that when we're referencing in other portions of this you will see a metric number, so you can go back and look at what that is. You'll see our baseline, and then you'll see our year one outcome. Yes,
Do you move behind the orange page?
yes, behind the orange page,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right.
And then you'll see our year one outcome, our year two outcome, and then this year is our year three outcome. This is the data we have. I believe we have every piece of data needed. There might be one or two that we're still waiting on, but we're pretty much closed out as far as everything we look at. And then you'll see our desired outcome. I want to remind you that our desired outcome is often different than our actual outcome because COVID occurred in the middle. And so a lot of these metrics we looked at as our baseline were pre-COVID measures. So we really, when I'm looking at whether something's effective or not, I was really looking at year two to year three. And so all of that data is there for you to look at. And then behind the gray page, you will find our LCAP goals and actions. These are our present goals and actions. In each, I put each action number, and then you'll see the funding, and you'll see 227 highlighted. So it's the LCAP action 22, 23, 24. And you'll see a highlighted number. That is what we have remaining. That is our remaining balance for that action as of 227. And this does factor in encumbered items as well as expense. So, and then you'll see the description of the action, and then you'll see the metric number that I was able to closely tie it to, and whether we deemed it to be effective. Overall effective means mostly. There might have been one little data point that wasn't. Neutral means that we really couldn't see if it was effective or ineffective, or possibly there were too many things clumped into one action that we were unable to determine a metric that actually was able to measure each item. So, as you can see, we have a nice amount that we've spent, but also I've been working diligently to see areas in which we can appropriately spend a little bit less money. I also manage our CARES Act funds. So anytime we've been able to use CARES Act funds, if it's an allowable item, of course we're going to use those one-time funds. So when you're looking at action 1.5, that's supplemental, almost everything within 1.5 is ESSER allowable. So anytime I can use ESSER, I'm using ESSER because we want to expend those one-time funds as they end in September. And so, and as you can see, I didn't analyze goal 4 because we are embedding that moving forward, and those actions will not. The last item you will see are my initial proposed actions. So that would be our 24-25 LCAP. I'm proposing that we do a facilities, curriculum, and basic services goal. So this will be all of our things that we know we need to make our school run. And they're not as measurable other than by, you know, your Williams Act or your Data Quest staffing. And then our second goal, I am requesting that we are proposing we do academic and achievement goals. And this is where we're looking at how our students are doing academically. We'll have a lot of subgroup data within this goal. And then finally, I'm looking at a climate goal. And then that is all of our behavior, attendance, school climate, overall social emotional learning, those type of actions will be within that. And then finally, you'll see equity multiplier goals. And if you look at the color coding, you'll see blue is basically our core instructional program. Pink highlights are our staffing. Yellow will be restricted funds. And orange are the things that we're requesting increases on, and a lot of those are our ESSER movement or things that I've heard from our employee groups that make sense, and I think we can afford even with the grim budget projection. And today I met, as a side note, today I met with Plaza Robles because they are one of our equity multiplier schools. We walked through campus, I talked to their administrator, and we talked about different things that they saw. So really looking at what we need at those specific sites, and that's what you'll see in our equity multiplier as far as goals and actions. But we just found those out super recently, so I haven't had a lot of time to take input on those. So I would like to turn it over to President Knackstead so we can get some input. I look forward to hearing what you'd like to see happen within our LCAP. Also, I'm here for any questions.
That was a lot of work. Thank you. Okay, we're going to let you folks talk. I have an order, and try and keep your comments to 5 minutes, please. Sometimes we can get long-winded, and then we stop listening after a while. So tell us what you need to say. Let's start with Lisa Wilkins from LEA, please.
I'm sorry, my allergies are tickling my throat, so popped in a cough drop. So one of the things, a couple of things that LEA emphasized is in talking with Ms. Curis, we were talking about how well they were doing on getting the reading by 3rd grade, which is great. However, if we want to increase graduation rates, we really need students to read at grade level in 8th grade. Being a middle school teacher, I see this. I see how not being able to read at 8th grade level is restricting their access to the curriculum. And if that's going to happen in 8th grade, what's going to happen in high school? I mean, 8th grade, you know, we can do some adjustments to get students reading that read at lower levels. We can find text in the subject area. It gets harder to do in high school where it's the level that they're supposed to achieve is harder. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that's coughing, so thank you. So that was one of the things. The other thing is AP courses. Lodi Unified has always had a robust AP offering, and we've done very well at getting students to take and pass AP courses. However, a lot of those teachers are retiring or leaving or have left the district. So we need to bring in a new set of teachers that are AP certified. So I would like to see money for getting teachers to get AP certified. Get in some new teachers that can teach these courses, can keep up the level and the variety of AP courses that we have. And then looking at the LCAP actions, I'm looking at additions, and there's some classified. There's a few additions, increases for certificates, not a lot, but I noticed there's a lot more management than, there seems to be a lot more management. And again, I'm worried about being management heavy and not having the people in the classroom. And that doesn't just include certificated, it includes classified as well, because there are several classified staff, there are certificated, classified staff that need to be here to support the students, especially in bilingual, getting those bilingual aids. And so, yeah, I'm worried about that. So if you kind of look in the red and you add up the numbers, it seems like there's way more, the ratio of admin to classified or certificated is skewed. It's too high. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Eric Sandstrom, I thought I saw you. Oh, they're trying to sit right next to me.
Thank you, President Knackstead, members of the board. On the administrative side of things, and this is for not just sites, but also district office management and administrators, but some of the common things and themes that we saw as we're asking folks for input and going through a lot of the information Ms. Shuris has shared with us and working with Dr. Solly. One of the biggest areas is our elementary sites and the concern or the need for vice principals across the board within our elementary sites. It's an awful lot at any school site for a solo administrator to do, and yes, some of our school sizes vary, but a solo administrator is sometimes the substitute in the classroom if we don't have enough substitutes. They are that person who provides student supervision. They're the disciplinarian. They handle the SSTs and the 504s and the IEPs. They coordinating the CASP testing, the LPAC, all the things they do. Some of our school sites at elementary level might have a part-time VP, some have a full-time depending on, but again, we would really like to see the ability to work in with our, again, it comes down to people and staffing and money, and we know that, but working with them. Other concern or area to address we'd like to, or we could within the LCAP is a similar theme along that line is counselors and providing student support services at the elementary schools in particular. The need for social emotional wellness, social emotional learning and counseling is huge at all of our grade levels, and we're still lacking in many areas within that, within the elementary. So being able to find funding and to be able to increase staffing of counselors at elementary school sites. On the middle school side of things, some of our middle school administrators came back with, again, and staffing for people is like to see the programs they have at some of the high schools that have had their on-campus intervention programs and seen some success in that, and they'd really like to be able to broaden that to be staffed at the middle schools as well, because they're seeing some of those interventions having an impact at our high schools and students finding those positive behaviors, but we don't have a staffed on-campus intervention program at our middle schools. And we'd like to be able to again, find means to fund those kinds of things. Other thing that comes up within the middle schools sometimes is campus supervision. Some of our middle schools most of them, they're getting bigger. As far as the things that we have to try and supervise, and some of them only have one campus supervisor. And when we talk about literally the area that we have to supervise and things like that, again, working in staffing needs for campus supervisors to see if we can increase that at the middle school level. The other big area was an area of technology, district-wide, working with the district. I know it's built into the LCAP, but seeing what we can do to make sure we're really working on that one-to-one Chromebook refresh program and making sure we're staying current with the needs for our students as far as what their technology needs are, whether that's being able to access electronically our textbooks and those kinds of things, but also be able to have serviceable equipment to their classrooms or their Google Classrooms and things that they need, but staying on top of that. And we appreciate folks in technology services because we're constantly swapping out Chromebooks and things. I know throughout the district, even my small school site, we do it quite frequently, but it's a lot to do, and keeping up with that refresh program is paramount in things that we see. Other thing that came up a little bit in discussions with folks overall is again, I come back to the social emotional wellness, and that's district-wide, working with our students and finding the means, and again, sometimes it's people, mental health clinicians and or counselors to be able to provide the services and the interventions that so many of our students need. We're seeing an increasing need for that across the board. So that's some of our input that we've had from our site administrators and district office staff.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next up is our District Advisory Committee. Natalie.
Scones.
Say it.
Scones, like a wall scones.
Okay, scones. All right.
Okay,
You're
thank
up.
you. Thank you so much. To piggyback on a lot of that, I took just kind of a survey of the 2 different schools that my children attend and talking to different parents and also faculty and staff. I think the intervention is a really big one. That was something that came up a lot of the elementary schools. The school that my daughter goes to in particular no longer has an intervention teacher there, and that's really big, especially for having students reading at by 3rd grade and getting to that 8th grade reading level. So I think intervention is really important. Something else that came up, competitive wages for faculty, and then another thing piggybacking off of that would be additional funds for school staff to be able to run after-school programs, homework clubs, different things that would help with, I guess, the lack of that intervention teacher that's not there, and so having faculty and staff be able to have funds to do these after-school activities. Safety, that was something that was big on there's not a safety officer on either of the campuses that my children attend. That was something that was brought up by a lot of people, having an officer on every campus. Another thing was the window wraps. That was something that was brought up where every school should be wrapped with any classroom that is open to a public street. I know that our school is still not wrapped, and we have kindergarten classrooms that sit at the front, so I think safety is a very big thing. Something as simple as wrapping those windows so that you can't see into the classroom is really important. One of the biggest things, and close to my heart, I work for a CTE program at Delta College. So CTE, and then having fair and equitable access to the arts and then music in elementary schools, bringing back band and orchestra as an opportunity for those elementary students. That was a big one. And some of these other ones are already touched on. So one of the other big ones was more accessibility to transportation for field trips or additional funds for charter buses, and just transportation funds in general was a big one for both of the school sites that I asked.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Gabriela Vasquez from the Lodi Supervisors Group.
Okay, thank you. The only point that the LUSG, our group, spoke about was an interest in providing professional development for the supervisors group. We see it go out for teachers and sometimes for staff. I provide my staff that's in the libraries with just professional development in the way that I can, but I don't really feel it, and a lot of my companions also think that we don't get any training. Actually, I think I've been in my position for 15 years. I've had one training, and that was on sexual harassment. And that was about 13 years ago. So, we would like to see something go towards that goal. And that's the only point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Belinda Yates, you're CSEA.
CSEA. Good evening, President Kanauskas, board members, Superintendent Young, and employee and parent group participants. Classified staff met with Jennifer, and one of our biggest concerns was we would like to have more professional development training. CWA, campus security, community liaison, pairs. M&O, I know we've had some issues at M&O as of late, a horrific one. And I think some of you know what I'm talking about. M&O clearly needs to have specific training for their trades to be safe. We're asking for the professional development opportunity that our members would appreciate. Professional development would build a stronger workforce for Lodi Unified School District. And I'm a little concerned on page 5, 3.6, where I do not see a little orange box with any increase to campus security. As a campus security supervisor, I feel that the need is great for our school sites to be more secure. Increase campus security, add more security cameras, and taller fences around our schools. Lodi High has a 4-foot fence accessible to Lodi Avenue, the public, that can jump over that fence and gain access to our campus with students and staff could be put into a very dangerous situation. The website SkillPath has offered all of these trainings, and with the district talking about the modified calendar in 25-26 school year, every Wednesday would be dismissal early, Wednesday early, and that would provide time for trainings. We have a paraeducator conference going on right now that I believe 20 paraeducators could have gone to, thank you, Neil. Only one went, and then our president, Desiree Weiss, she said it's not just for paraeducators, it is open up. It could be used for administrator secretaries, it could be used for community liaisons, tons of classes and educational training that's out there. We need to be able to have access to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the District English Learning Advisory Committee with Rado Lara.
Yes, thank you.
Is that close to being right?
Yes.
Cool.
I have a couple of figures for you. First of all, I think that this is amazing. You have all the elements that to be successful here. I just think that we will need to sort and maybe fine tune in some of those elements. So let me start with the goals, okay? When I read these goals, I'm very straightforward with the feedback, no hard feelings, please, okay? So the goals, when I'm seeing this, the goal looks like a vision, okay, for the school, okay? So we'll need to step back a little bit, and ideally I would recommend to have a vision, mission process, like what is the school district that we want to achieve, and what are we doing to reach that? And based on that mission, vision, develop a strategy, okay? These goals are very strategic, and I will say, okay, this is our strategy. Our strategy is divided in these, I will say, 4 buckets, okay? After having the strategy, okay, you can set up the goals, and the goals must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time frame, okay? When you develop that, that will trigger the specific actions to achieve those goals, okay? And those actions will need to check if they are being effective or not through those metrics. When I see this, the metrics that we have are not aligned to the goals. And just an example, if you pick up the second goal and take a look on the metrics, so my question is, if we implement the data management system, if we maintain district support, if we provide access and opportunity to all high school, and if we provide expanded access to programming, blah, blah, do we met the second goal? If we execute those metrics, if we met those metrics, we will be deliver all students proficiency in literacy, mathematics? No, we're not delivering that, because there is a disconnection between the goal, the actions, and the overall strategy. Again, I'm not saying that this is wrong, it's just there are blank spaces in between that we need to fill, and we need to be more specific, okay? Metrics. We need to split those in in-process metrics and outcome metrics, okay? When we say all students, I'm engineer, I'm always thinking in numbers. If I say all students, I think 100% of the population, and automatically I will tell you this is impossible, okay? So it's something that we will need to, I will say, to fine tune again, because one portion of the metrics will tell you, okay, proficiency about 96%, I don't know, you are the expert on that, okay? And that's the outcome that we want to achieve, okay? To meet our strategy, to meet our mission, vision, okay? There are other in-process metrics, and what I'm seeing here, okay, this is a lot of in-process, okay? So we're working in the process, but I'm not sure that if we execute all the process, we will achieve the final, the ultimate goal, okay? There was a mention about workforce, okay? And this is just my recommendation to you. You need to have a specific effort for workforce. Retention and compensation. Compensation is just a piece of the I will say, of the full puzzle, because I mean, if I get the double of the money that I'm making right now, would I go back to the previous company that I was working for? No, ever. I will never work for them again in my life. Okay. What I'm trying to say is there is a cultural component in retention that we will need to take in account. Okay. Maybe the teacher will say, I don't make that much money, but I'm happy working here, okay? So it's a balance between that retention, cultural retention and compensation that you need to take in account. There is also another cultural component that is not here at all, okay? We understand our demographic, we understand our numbers, but the question is, what are we doing, or what is the objective, the action, the energy, to assure that the students and parents want to come here to Lodi to study here, okay? So I'm just saying this for the first time, and looks like there is nothing about that, okay? So it's something very, very important, because if you have the right cultural workforce and you promote this, the people will start flowing through Lodi to come here and study, okay? You can Google easily, districts in the country that the people wants to move there to study there. So what are we doing here in Lodi to pull that people and come here and let's be the best? I mean, I think that everything is here. We just need to put everything together. And just to close with that benchmarking portion, like comparing ourselves with other districts, let's connect with the community. I have been in Lodi probably 18 months, okay? And I get into the school and I was like, I want to help. Because I come from a state where the people, the system force you to be involved in the school, okay? And after some time, you are doing that happily, okay? I have not seen that here. That's why they pulled me for DLAC, I came here, so it's like, I wanna help, okay? I wanna help. But what are we doing to promote the same, I will say, feeling with other parents? They want to be involved, okay? They want to be part of the education. So it's something that also we need to include here. And this will be beneficial not for the students, okay? Also for the districts, for the school, because you will connect with the community, you will have support, you will have increased efficiency. So we can have like these reviews at the school level, and we can collect those inputs, okay? And when we get here, we will have a world-class review, okay? So it's something that I think that we need to do to increase participation, and we need to intentionally include here. Connecting with the community, again, I need to highlight this. This will be amazing because I have seen that in the past. We have here a lot of wineries. So how those wineries are supporting the school system, how are we visiting those wineries to provide the skills to our kids, because when they leave high school, probably they will go there and work for them, okay? So that's I would say my last comment. I think that connecting with the community is one of the foundational pillars of the school district and in general of the education.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to LPPA, Bobby Abel-Smith.
Thank you, President Knexon, members of the board. For LPPA, we would like to maintain ratios of members or increase our members to help support the goals. We, of course, the LCAP has lots of lofty goals and grand goals. What we are seeing as some critical issues right now is student attendance. If the students aren't here every day, we can't help them. We can't help them until they get on campus, and so we feel like we would like to see some metrics and some specific actions tied to not just saying, oh, we have CWA, but what is it that we're doing to connect with academic interventions? Why is it the students don't want to come to school? Is it because they're feeling academically, socially, behaviorally? And we feel like our members, school psychologists, school counselors, nurses and all of that, our group can help support those students in meeting those goals and getting the metrics and looking at our tiered system of supports and saying, okay, what are the students that are at risk? What are we going to do? Are we setting goals at the site level and monitoring that? How can we address this systemically as well as at the individual level? We would also like to look at, looking at PBIS, SEL, and MTSS, looking at the proportion of services across those different levels, making sure that we're, right now, in some of our groups, for example, counseling services, it's very fragmented, and so we feel like looking at do we have the correct proportion of school counselors to meet students at tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 before we then get into that more intensive mental health one-on-one services? Because, and I know there's been a lot of work done in the district, and we're making progress towards that, so we would like to continue down that path that we're on to even out and address those earlier interventions and supports at tier 1 and tier 2 and avoid some of that tier 3. Along those same lines, supporting students with disabilities and student foster youth and homeless youth, not just reducing our suspensions, but reducing our expulsions. And again, kind of going back to making them want to be here and making sure we're providing, not just A to G, not just CTE, but what else, what are we doing to look at the whole student? One thing that came up for us was looking at, and some of this happened, looking at alternatives at the high school level, alternative pathways, but what else can we do to keep finding those alternative pathways, because we have a lot of students that don't fit the mold. And when I'm looking at just some of the outcome measures, we're seeing we're not meeting some of our goals there. And we come to board meeting and we see lots of students still getting in trouble. And they're just shuffling around from one site to the other. So how are we meeting those needs? And with the equity multiplier and some of these things, you know, we have an opportunity to say, okay, what are we going to specifically do, and what people and what programs are we going to do to support those students, so that when they land, you know, when they are in, you know, hard times, or they land at Plaza Robles, or they land at Independence, are we giving them an intensive intervention so that they can get back on track and get back into a comprehensive site? Or do we have another program like VRA, where we have students that if they need that smaller setting or they need something different, do we have some options for those students that just need something different, that they just don't fit the mold, they're just learning in a different way. We'd also like to see some increased support for our credentialed school counselors. So to, especially at the middle school and high school level, to help address the A to G and the CTE pathways. That was all for
All right, thank you. Okay, Michaela Jensen, mental health therapist.
It's actually Michelle.
Michelle.
That's okay. Literally happens every day.
It was my name,
Thank you, President Canizas.
Yes.
Thank you, Superintendent Young. Thank you, board members. Thank you for allowing mental health to have a seat at the table. Can we just pause? I am honored to represent the mental health group, as well as be part of demystifying and destigmatizing mental health, not only for our students here, but in general, to the greater community. So thank you for this opportunity. We are 27 clinicians strong, and that group of 27 is serving the entire district. That is a lot. We carry a lot on our shoulders. We are very fortunate to collaborate with Bobby Eagle-Smith's group, with the school counselors, with the school psychologists. We're very grateful to partner with the principals and with the teachers. We really view ourselves as a collaborative group, and we are grateful for the teamwork that we have been able to function within. However, it is challenging to meet the entire district-wide mental health needs with just 27 people. Currently, we are on the majority of our comprehensive campuses at least one day a week. That's not enough. That's not enough. We have a desire to really target our middle school and high school demographic. If we were to add one clinician, we would then be able to staff every single one of our 4 comprehensive high schools with 5 days a week of therapy support. That's amazing. By adding one, we would be able to fill that out. If we were able to add 2 clinicians to our team, so one to absorb the missing pieces with high school, but if we added another clinician, we would be able to then increase our middle school coverage to at least 3 days a week per campus. That's still not enough, but it's moving in the right direction. We are also really excited about the prospects of Turner 2. I hope that stays on the horizon. I hope we continue to move forward with that as a therapeutic site. There are many children who are not going to be successful on a comprehensive campus. We want to provide a safe space for them. That is something that we collaborate again with school psychs and with our school counselors. We really want to see Turner 2 come around. So we are hopeful for Turner 2 to be up and running soon. So we are grateful for what we've been able to accomplish. We are committed to growing strong and growing well. I had a lovely conversation with Ms. Curie the other day, and I was able to share that we are very connected in our community, which I want to connect with Mr. Lara after. Graduate students are knocking on my door every day to come and do their field study practicum with our mental health department because our reputation is so strong. Because what we are doing in mental health in schools is precedent setting. So you have much to be proud of. So thank you, board, for allowing us to do what we do on our campus. And please know that it's not only affecting us here in our district, but we are agents of change across the state as we train up graduate students to become clinicians out in the community. So thank you for partnering with us, for allowing us to be here, and we look forward to growing well with you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, and finally, our own Michelle Armstrong with confidential employees.
President Knaxton, members of the board, Superintendent Young. On behalf of the confidential group, I would like to thank you for allowing us to be a part of this process. Okay. We are pleased with the current goals that have been presented, and us as the confidential group, we stand ready to assist and board and management to carry out the directives necessary to accomplish the district LCAP goals. That is all I have to say tonight.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to open this up to public comments. If there are any, come on up. Try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
While she's walking
I
up
forgot
here.
to mention.
While she's walking up, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Lisa. Well,
Okay, so basically, one of the things that I forgot to mention is I was looking at the old LCAP goals, and one of the LCAP goals, so many pages here, was having credentialed teachers. It was the, so last year, 22-23, we only had 92% of credentialed teachers in their assignments, and we had 101 that are misassigned and vacancies according to the Williams Act. And that is something that we, the district really needs to work on. I know that this year, with information I got from the district, we had 93 openings, which were either filled by a substitute or teachers doing 120 contracts. But what was really concerning is 36 of those were in special ed. We need to do better there for those students.
okay. Thank you. Okay. Go on. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Rebecca Pisano, and I'm a 6th grade teacher at Creekside Elementary School. And I apologize, this is actually my first LCAP meeting, so I'm a little bit, unsure of the process. But I did want to talk about a little bit about the metrics, just because you brought up some really good points to me, and I was thinking about, as a teacher, I do have to have like those numbers in front of me. Like, how do I know that I'm meeting my goals? If I want to move from one person from, the red tier, well, what makes that student a red tier? And exactly what am I going to do to move that student from that red tier to the yellow tier? And I do have to have that strategic plan. And so obviously this is just one tiny document. Does like those strategic things exist on another document, or is this it? I guess that's more of a question, not a comment. Sorry.
So, okay.
We have various other data sources, yes. Data dashboards, we're building those up more and more as we get comments from community members, principals, teachers. Here's what we want to see, what we need to see, as well as some of the ordered down from on ICD says we need to see X, Y, and Z. We follow those as well. So this is not the sum total of our data.
Okay, just double checking. And then I wholeheartedly agree with pretty much what everybody said about the mental health clinicians, about needing the more counselors, about needing extra people, extra bodies, because, I hear this all the time. As one teacher, I teach 23 amazing kids, but they come with a whole lot. And, on one in the morning, I'm dealing with, drama that happened at home. At lunchtime, it's something that happened at recess, on top of trying to get them to be able to just multiply. So any support that we can have in the classroom to do interventions, to really get our 6th graders especially, because they all miss that 3rd grade mark and they're in 6th grade, and I still have kids who are BRs. And it's like, what are we doing to help these students be ready for middle school? So support in those areas is good too.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Billy Yates, parent and teacher. And I just had a question. I don't see that this is being broadcast on YouTube, and why? It is?
It is.
Okay. We are, okay, sorry. Didn't see the camera. And another question is, you mentioned that, I'm not gonna say this right, but things could be eliminated if they're not working. Without obviously getting into a specific, can you give an example of maybe something like that you've seen?
So let's say we have an action regarding early literacy and we're not seeing progress, then whatever that action is regarding early literacy, we cannot keep it as is. We need to make adjustments. And so a lot of our actions have been pretty broad up to date, and they're intentionally that way because you want to be able to make adjustments as you go. However, if you're not making appropriate adjustments to show growth, like if you're not seeing that your DIBEL scores are going up and your students are reading at grade level by 3rd, 7th, 9th, we're adding some new grade levels to look at. So as we're not seeing that improvement after 3 years, then we have to make changes. One of the things we're putting in place are some intervention TOSAs, so teachers on special assignment, to help at all of our elementary sites. Well, with that comes the requirement to improve our data. If our data is not improving, we can't continue to provide that service.
Is there how does it have to improve, just 1%, or is it like a,
They give that responsibility to the people, us evaluating, however the county, if they thought, so the county reviews this document with me. We meet, I don't know, maybe every 3 weeks, every other week. And so they're making sure that I'm following all the rules and laws. If I didn't see growth right now, since they didn't tell us before and all of our actions are pretty vague, they didn't require us to really be as tight on evaluation. However, now that we're going to have a metric tied to each action, at the end of 3 years, they're going to expect to see results, as we should too. So if we're not seeing results, then we need to make adjustments.
great input, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, board have a comment you would like to make? Sure. Joe, Ms. Nava?
Go ahead. You go ahead. Oh no, I would like to just thank everybody for the time and effort, and was feverishly writing down some notes. And looking at this, obviously I'm going to always default back to our students and our employees and the people that work here. I was curious, Mr. Sandstrom brought up about the mental health, and just in your opinion, is that enough? Increasing by 8? I feel like our SEL, we've heard it over and over, and I have a concern that that's not, personally, I don't know if that's enough, but do you feel like that's enough? I know I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry, but.
President Knax and members of the board, Ms. Alexander, no. Well, we can, she gave numbers of, hey, give us 1 more, it'll do something to comprehensive schools, add in 2 more when we talk about our mental health clinicians. We have a mental health clinician at my site. They're about a day and a half, maybe, depending on, and it's a small school site. I could use it, she's phenomenal. I could use Alejandra there every day of the week, all day. We have a huge need in social emotional wellness throughout our district. I would even add, we have a need within our staff, not just within our students. And I don't know how to address that. That's maybe not within our LCAP, maybe that's within our own professional development, other offerings within staff. But the need is there and it is large.
Thank you, I appreciate that. The security, the safety of our students, mentally, emotionally, physically, and of our teachers and our employees in general. I also was curious, Belinda, it was kind of, you had said, if you can just refresh for me, you said there were 20 available spots for the training and only 1 person went.
Right.
What was
And the reason being is a lot of the special ed paras and severely handicapped special ed paras, there was nobody to sub for them and they didn't know their students. And it was offered, Mr. Young did offer it to them. and I think maybe paid for it also. But they couldn't go because they felt guilty. No, I wouldn't say felt guilty. They have an obligation to their students, and they wanted to be on site with their students. If somebody was fully able to come in and take care of their students, they would have been comfortable leaving, but they didn't just want to throw anybody in there with their, because we've been having people from Maxim come, and they don't feel, I went to a CPI training the other day, which is for autistic children, nonverbal children. I learned, Mr. Yates has the little tags on your belt. I learned what those were for, because I asked, how do I talk to a nonverbal student that's having an issue? There was 2 special ed paras there. There was 1 special ed teacher, there was 3 campus security, and 2 administrators. And when I said, shouldn't every para-educator that's with severely handicapped and autistic children and nonverbal children be taking this class? Where are they? There was no seats for, a lot of people there, and there's multiple trainings. And again, I was told they had to have a sub, and there was nobody to sub for them, and that came from the special ed teacher.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you all for your time too, I appreciate it. Clean, concise, easy to understand. What do we need? Well, we need a lot.
Any other board comments? Ms. Novak, you said we have
I'm
one.
going to approach this a different way. I know that you had meetings with parents. How successful was that?
So we had, at our first district advisory meeting, we had about 50, and then the last one, we had about 35. So that's, and then for our survey, we had, I believe, like 350 or something like that.
Now, my other question is, were you satisfied with their input?
Oh, definitely. I feel like we have an excellent group of parents that are coming in and providing input from Lodi schools, Stockton schools. Where I feel like all areas are represented. In our district advisory, in our DLAC as well, we have a nice group of over 30 that have input, and we've gone twice to those meetings as well. So I feel like I've received a lot of input, and it's actually really consistent. The things you heard today are very consistent with what we heard through all of our parent input meetings.
Thank you, Jennifer. Another thing is, my concern is, you have 4 goals. And are those the goals that include all these people and your parents?
So the goals are really overarching. So the first one will be about basic services. So there'll be a goal about basic services, and all the actions within, there'll be likely right now, I believe I have 11 under that. And those are our basic services, the things that we need to make sure that we put in there to sustain our district. And then there's 10 for the first. And then the second is our academic achievement goals. Obviously, as I heard things today, I will be adjusting. This is just our preliminary. I heard input today that I think we need to go back and re-meet. I need to re-meet with cabinet and talk about the things that we need to adjust, since this is our input from you. So I do believe that the actions will adjust slightly, but they will include the input from today.
Go ahead.
If I may, I'd also refer back to the state priorities. We also are aware, follow the board goals, superintendent goals. This is a bit of a conglomeration of goals, and that's why sometimes it's, I know there's concerns about things being sometimes too specific, sometimes too vague. There's a lot of competing interests in this plan, so it's a little difficult, but I do want to bring you back to that. We do have the 8 state priorities, the goals that are provided in the LCAP. Those are part of the LCAP template that all districts follow, and as well as we weave in state board and superintendent goals as well.
Very, very good. Now, my next point is, in the past, okay, this is the future now, we had the committee prioritize what is needed and what's wanted by the parents and the group. Have you done that? Or are the LCAP goals 1 or 2 and 3 and 4, are those it?
So the goals don't really shift too much. It's really the actions within them that change. So the goals really are broad goals. That's actually what they call them, and that's what's required. So those don't change a ton, it's really how we measure them, our metrics might adjust, and the actions within them. And we did do that, so at our DLAC meeting, at our DAC meeting, we went through and prioritized, they highlighted what they thought were most important, and then they wrote the things they thought could be adjusted or reduced. We did the same thing with our LEA survey and at our CSEA meeting. So we did go through and prioritize within those groups, and that's what you see here in the recommended, as in addition, some of the things you heard today.
So you've already done that, and I know that I'm not in the field, so I'm not aware of what's happening out there, but I have a sense. Number one, you have to tell us, you prioritize the goals, because you need some input from this board. I don't know if any members of the board here have been to your meetings or had input on the meetings, but I would like to know the priorities that you have for us, because we're voting for it. And I need to know what I'm voting for, as far as, is this a good vote, and that's not good, or I would vote for this and that. So could you do that for us?
Yes, Mr. Howard.
Okay, any other board comments? Okay, well, then I have one. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
Oh. Is it on?
Yeah.
Oh, the little light's not there. No, I'm kind of piggybacking on everything else I've heard, and some of the stuff, just because it's close to me, with the social, emotional wellness. An acquaintance of mine for about the last 12 years, just make a long story short, her daughter was 11 years old, past tense already, and she was building a rope thing and decided to hang herself. And the parents had no idea. I guess her other little friends or her acquaintances sort of heard rumors, and I don't know which school district was in the Bay Area, because on a hillside where she was swinging, and so that's that. And then I hear about, and I know school psychs and mental health are different, because my daughter is just finishing up her master's in it, and she has to report to me almost every day what she's been learning and what's going on in her practicum, and what I'm doing wrong, and how I need help. But anyway, it is important, and I think maybe even Eric said it, that it's also for teachers. It is a stressful job. I'm just thinking back to some of the days I had. And it didn't happen often, but I got a couple of death threats, and they kind of shake you up a little bit, even though it's, probably in jest, but, sort of a gangster, so, well-known one. So I think, to me, it wasn't really a safety thing, it just upset me. So it was more of a mental health thing. And we talk about kids being able to read by 3rd grade. And I hear this every day too. Early childhood education is expanding, and more studies are showing that intervention has to be really early. In fact, my wife's working on a grant with a couple of the people here in this district. She's at the county, and it's the second biggest pool of money that the county has for grants is in early childhood education. So I think, I don't know if that really fits into the goals, but it's never too early to start in a lot of these things. And I want to thank you all for putting together very concise reports with good information and a lot of good ideas. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
I just have some questions.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, this is yours, just a couple of questions, because I have a lot of information. I was looking at page 1 or 2 on your demographics, student demographics. And it's a color chart there, very nicely done. Student demographics. You don't have a color code for blue. You don't have a color code for the blue. I don't know what blue represents, but it's 10%.
Oh, so this was last year's.
That's 2344 district overview.
Yeah, so this was the overview that was presented to you last year from Mariah and Chelsea. And so this is just a recap of that.
Okay, so there's some errors, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but I'm not 100%, but
I
No problem. I
believe
just
it
was
might be
curious.
other, but I wouldn't want to guess.
Yeah, I just was curious, because it was a large group and.
I took this straight off of our website because I wanted to make sure we had
No harm, no
information
foul.
for us.
My next question refers to your answer. You said that we're gonna be pulling in 65 FTEs. Of those 65 FTEs, what are they?
So not everything is coming into our LCAP. So we have some mental health clinicians that are
So this
going.
wouldn't apply to this?
No, it wouldn't apply to this.
Okay, so
The
that's-
items that you see that are in there, those are highlighted and they say from ESSER.
Okay, so I was just curious about that statement, what did 65 represent? I'll send an email. Now, your metric on whether something's effective or not, what rubric do you use?
So in the past, that was not required.
Right.
We have not used that. So what we determined is if it was overall showing at least some form of growth, we were deeming it effective when I talked to the county for the purpose of before. As we look forward, as we look to our new LCAP, everything will be tightly aligned. So when we look at that, then we will determine as a group and then get that approved by county what we deem to be effective. However, if you have input on that, we would love to hear that.
No, I like that you're being mobile, and if it's not working, it's not working. So that's excellent. I hear a lot of professional development all around, and I think that's great. And we learn through growth, through education, and experiences and so forth. Mental health, of course, is a given for all people on our campus and within our Lodi Unified family. Kind of piggybacking on Mr. Nava, I don't think we can do all of this. So as Mr. Nava said, how are we going to prioritize it? Who is going to do that?
Well, we will convene in our Ed Services team and other teams, cabinet. We are seeking some guidance from you all. Obviously, your board goals and superintendent goals are already direction, but as you see and digest this, we are interested in if you want to ring the bell for intervention as of or over mental health or vice versa, because it does come to a push shove. Something's going to get funded and something isn't, and so we are seeking some guidance.
Okay. On a final note, just personally for me, thank you. I love all this information. I can't make any decisions about anything until I go through it. It's full of information. I love it. And to both of you, thank you for your hard work. And to all of you that met as a group, I appreciate your input. I did listen. I did take notes. You all have good things to bring out, and they're well thought. So thank you very much for all your hard work and input and caring about our students and our teachers and all the people that work here at our schools. So again, thank you for me.
Here? Okay. Okay. Well, to summarize what I heard, not necessarily what was said, but what I heard was we need more aides in the classroom, more vice principals, more counselors, campus soups on each campus, at least one, more training, more professional development, more counselors again, and more mental health clinicians. So basically what I think I'm hearing is that we need more classroom support of all kinds. Now our problem is deciding, which one of those, if we have to say one or two or three are the most important. I guess that's our decision. We have to decide what that's going to be. And so my question to Mr. Young is, right now is, suggestions on how you want that to happen, because I think we all want everything.
Mr. Connexted, members of the board, it is a challenge because we are waiting to see what the state is actually going to allocate for public education and the impact that will have on Lodi Unified School District. But we certainly have the themes right now that we hear from everyone. And what I would do is I'd hand it back Dr. Solly and serious, the next steps that you see for the board to look at some of those, knowing that we will have another study session in May. Hopefully the governor's budget is proposed, even though we know there's always the negotiations back and forth between the legislature and the governor's office. But in May, that'll be the next stop in providing you information to look at and how we can proceed with all the different needs. So, anything you would add to that, Dr. Sully?
Well, I just, on the last document, in fact, I think that's it up on the screen there. The right-hand column, the notes, those are some of the notes from our prior board meeting asking about staffing and such. If you look through a lot of the notes do address the priorities that came up tonight. So these would be recommendations, actually, to Mr. Nava, your question earlier. These would be some of our recommendations. We are seeking additional direction. And again, the wild card in all this is the May budget revise. What's that going to look like? And because there's other things, I'll just make another brief comment about like professional development. That's what I have done and I want to do, and it's super important. I can think of the good old days when I could pull 110, 120 teachers out of the classroom, get substitutes without any problems, and we would train, could do the same for subs and whatnot. That challenge that we face now is that the need for professional development has increased and the access to the employees is decreased. So we have to figure out some other ways to try to get that done, but not to take it off the table, but it just, in my mind, I have to think about, okay, there's a lot of requests for that, but how much money should I allocate? Because why allocate X dollars if I can only spend, half of it? Correct. So we have to be careful about that as well.
Ms. Sue?
Thank you. First, thank you for everybody for all your input. Apologize for my voice. I have horrible asthma and allergies, and everybody in the room probably has something too. Thank you for all your input. Thank you, Dr. Solly. Ms. Cheers communicated very effectively, very simplistic, very straightforward. It's probably the best LCAP meeting I think we've had as far as clean. I really like the way it was presented. Again, recurring themes, Mr. Knecht said, there's what we want, there's what we need, and there's what we're going to get. And so what I am curious to see is how the metrics are going to be applied to see, are we allocating money in it now, and are those some of these jobs out there that we can fill, or programs that we need that maybe what we have in place isn't working, and I know to us. I love specific site names are going to be named. I think that is fantastic, so there's no question about where the money is going and how it's being allocated. The biggest question that I have is when we talk about third grade reading. A student can read a word but not comprehend a darn thing they read. So when we say read by third grade, that just kind of my neck goes up, because having had a child, I won't name which one it was, could read exuberantly high, but she also comprehended, which I was fortunate. And I had another one that read okay, but couldn't comprehend. And so I think when we say reading by, phonetically, yes, they might be able to read, but are we comprehending? So if that's the case, then how do we take those third graders that meet the metrics and they're in line, and do we follow them, and are those, especially the ELA students and students that struggle, all of our different subgroups? What programs, I want it really clearly defined what we're doing in K through 3, middle school and then high school, because they're going to dip. Because when you get somebody classified out of a certain category, say in third grade, and they go fourth and fifth and they start to wane, do we pick them back up and do they fall in a group? So I'm curious, how are we propelling our students along in a positive manner? Because yay, we hit it, they're all reading by third. Say we get 90%, that would be phenomenal, right? But then by sixth grade, oh boy, we're back in trouble. So what worked there, and are we following it through? And I know this is just the tip of how to follow them. So those are my concerns, that we have the right rubrics in place that we can see when we're losing steam, because we talk about it regularly, the board does, about why is there a sophomore in high school not able to read? Why are they flunking English 6 times? Where are we at? So did they read by third grade, or did they never read? And the data is, if it's out there, we have not seen that.
Thank you, and we are making reasonably good progress. I'd say good progress, but I want to point out one thing. The reading by third grade is actually the tripwire. Truly, by standard, students should be reading by the end of first grade. And we need to, first of all, not to set the bar even higher, but truly, we want our students reading by the end of first grade. And we are seeing results with that with our SIPs assessment, our sixth grade processes and our DIBBLS assessments. And the training we have been able to provide for our staff at the primary grades. But I agree with you that that's critical. We need to get that baked into here. But also, really, the goal is reading by first grade. If it's third grade, that's when you're in the danger zone. So but that's the reason that gets brought forward is that's what the data says. If you don't do this, then there's a problem. We don't want to get to that territory.
So do you want to change our goal of reading by first grade, even though the county, we've all agreed to third grade? Are you looking to change it to first grade?
Mrs. McFarland.
Okay, sorry.
Members of the board, I would point out the skills that are developed, certainly in, up through second grade. But Lexile really gives that comprehension level, which we do assess our students throughout the year, 3 times in fact. There's also a fluency piece, which also has to do with, if you were reading out loud, can you read it out loud fluently? So I know our teachers are providing those assessments, having 2 kids who have gone through the district, one who's currently in 6th grade, and I was with her last night as she was reading out loud to us. Those are the pieces in 3rd grade, but there are skills along the way for sure that we are assessing through diagnostic DIBBLS, and even many of the sites are using SIPs, which is an ongoing assessment of their reading skills, putting those words together, putting the sentences together, blending the sounds, and then ultimately we are assessing by 3rd grade, are they comprehending what they're reading? Because as a former 6th grade teacher, there were kids who were amazing at reading Harry Potter. They didn't understand a word of what they were reading. And you may know words, but if you don't know what those words mean, we're missing out. And I just want to also mention, I think what Mrs. Wilkins has brought up is really good for us. We talked about not just 3rd grade, but 5th grade, because that means we still have time to continue working on, if necessary, tier 2, those interventions. Then in 7th grade, the concept is, well, now we know, and we still have time before they leave middle school. Our concern when we had this discussion was, if we do it at the end of 8th grade, the middle school can no longer respond to those issues. We don't want to wait until, oh, sorry, hey, good luck in high school. We want to say, oh yeah, here's an issue. Let's work on this prior to going to high school. Then again in high school, we can assess that to see where they are on that continuum. So those are good benchmarks along the way, so that by the time they get to high school, they're understanding, the literature literacy that they're reading and understanding in an English class, a social studies class, reading expository in our science classes and understanding those as well. So, yes.
And I don't want to convolute but the standards are reading, the comprehension is the piece that's more of a 3rd grade push. When you read the standards, it talks about 1st grade reading and reading with assistance, comprehending with assistance. But by 3rd grade is when the fluency and the comprehension and the reading come together. So that, yes, so it's not that they're reading Harry Potter in 1st grade. That's not going to happen too much.
And then I just wanted to address that. So on action 2.8 in our new actions, we actually expanded our TOSAs. We did our very first training with our incoming TOSAs that we've already hired, as well as the intervention teachers that are at each site, at our Title I sites. And we did our very first all-encompassing early literacy training, and it was phenomenal, and we're going to continue to do things like that. We'll be monitoring K2, 3, 5, 7, and 9, which is something that we haven't seen within our LCAP, so we're paying a lot of attention to this, and I'm excited to walk us through it later on.
Thank you.
Dr. Bolton, you have a comment?
Just 2 questions. I'm sorry.
Dr. Bolton.
I was just, as we were having this conversation, you visit a dentist twice a year. That was Colgate-Palmolive, not your dentist who said that. So if your funding is connected to which grade the children are reading. We're sticking with what the funding and what the state is asking for. Am I getting that right? So we're going by what the state is desiring the school district to do, not what the school district would anyhow want to do.
It's a combination.
So if your first grader is able to read easier than some of your third graders, there's always going to be that mix. Is it good for us to say, and I'm asking because I want to know, is it good for us to say everybody should meet this standard by this time, and if we didn't meet this standard, we're failing, we're so bad, we're terrible? We're not. This child can meet the standard at this point. It's like standardizing care. Everybody's got to be 120 by 80 in your blood pressure. Anybody above that, everybody's either obese or has high blood pressure. Well, that's not how it is. Everybody has a different level when they're going to reach it. So I think having several points of reaching it is.
Yeah, that's correct. Everybody, and like I said, there's probably some first graders out there reading Harry Potter and comprehending, but very few. But to your point, there is definitely variations, particularly in the youngest grades, where students are just learning to read as opposed to reading to learn.
So does it bring frustration amongst the educators when these goals are not being met as set?
You know, what I would say is this, one of the challenges, I think Bobby, you brought this up earlier. If we were to look at reading as a marathon, and one student is daily preparing for that marathon, and another is missing multiple days, those gaps have a huge impact. And so not everyone, you know, I will tell you, teachers that I talk to, the biggest frustration is you see a glimmer of hope, and then you see 2 weeks of missing school, and you feel like it's Groundhog Day over and over again. And that student is assessed as well, and you see, and it just kind of reinforces the frustration that people have, which is, I'd love nothing more than to see that progress, but there's factors that get in the way, from attendance to behavior to social emotional challenges, which comes back to that bigger piece, which is it can't be from one angle, it has to be from multiple angles to be able to do that, because there are factors, and not every child is in the exact same, I mean, they don't live in a vacuum, they live in the real world, and just like with dentistry, sometimes they show up and it's like, what's going on here?
So
And yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm looking at it from a whole different angle, not just one. And this is my first time sitting in this. This is very interesting for me. Goals are there. Are they achievable? To an extent. Will we come back and have the same conversation in 3 years? Probably. That doesn't mean that we're not doing what we need to do. So I'm of the opinion that just because we didn't meet something doesn't mean we bring around frustration, and it makes it harder for people to do their jobs when we bring frustration with our goal creation. So it's okay to come back and say these didn't work. Let's look at them again. Let's fix it again. 2 mental health additions were helpful. 4 might be awesome. So in 3 years it will change. So I think we should be forgiving to the goals as well.
Can I say something as a teacher? I can say that, you know, teachers are not, thank goodness, they're not necessarily evaluated on how well their students do, because I think in the big picture, as Mr. Young said, the site administrators know that there could be barriers, and there's higher barriers in some sites than in others, right? But I know it is frustrating for teachers when they are doing their best to get these kids to whatever it is, to read, to do simple arithmetic, as you get into higher grades, you know, understand algebra. And you get to a point where you do feel frustrated at a personal level. And again, you're not necessarily being evaluated on it. I mean, you might be if like all of your students aren't moving, you know, as an administrator, even myself as a teacher, if I didn't see all of my, you know, if nothing was changing, if they were, you know, their benchmarks or whatever test it is, they're staying the same, then I would have to be evaluating myself. I'd probably be working with my administrator, I'd be working with my colleagues to say, what can I do differently? How can I improve? And I know overall, most of my teachers, you know, want to improve. That's one of the issues that we're having right now is they want to take more professional development for units, and right now, and that will help them on the salary scale as well, but district's not approving much of anything. That's another story. But I mean, I know we feel that. We do feel that. I know as an 8th grade teacher, when I see a kid who is not comprehending the text, I am sitting there going, what's going to happen to them in high school? Are they going to be one of the kids who drop out? I don't want to see that. I want them to be successful. So, you know, we've got to do something different. We can't just keep passing these kids along and hoping for the best. I agree with you on that. So whatever it is we need to do to change, then let's figure out a way to do it. Because we need to increase our graduation rates. We need to get students ready for if it's career technical, if it's college, whatever it is that they want to do. But we got to do something. And for some of these kids, like you said, not everything is working. And some of it we can't. You know, there are so many barriers with their home life and everything else. I don't know if we can overcome those.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
going to try.
Steve, do you have?
I just did 2 quick questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
About LCAP. And I don't know if I'm on base on this. Can we make a part of LCAP, this is high school related, a change in the schedule so that we have more offerings and we have more time for teachers in a variety of different ways of learning, development, working with their site administrators and so forth. Can that be a part of LCAP? I know that Lodi has done a little traction on that. And I was told Bear Creek was trying to do a little traction. Is that a part of LCAP, or am I out in left field, left field on that? And could we make that part of LCAP? It doesn't cost anything.
You know, as far as the way in which the LCAP is set up and the goals, I think they are certainly related. But whether or not that would be placed in the LCAP, that would be a question I'd have to think through, because what you're pointing to, yes, teachers are having great conversations about looking for more opportunities. We also have to pay attention to collective bargaining agreements. There's a grid as far as teacher day, contact time, instructional time. Those are all pieces of that discussion. As far as collaboration and things of that nature, I know there are discussions happening right now without going into those details. I think in essence, they are, but as far as metrics and how those would be brought into it, I'm not sure, Mr. Porter, if that's the right place, but I think we can have a conversation about that.
Sorry to interrupt you. If we open up more periods and we have more opportunity for intervention, which is, I believe, what Ms. Uris was talking about, where we bring these kids up to speed that might be a little bit behind in intervention classes.
Yeah.
But that's just me out left field. And my last question, the TOSAs, awesome. You have people in the classroom that are experts daily with those teachers, helping them get better and having that dialogue and working together in the same room, same environment. That is, I mean, I will put that as one of my top priorities, because that makes it very, very powerful. For our best teachers to be working with our new teachers or interns, you couldn't ask for anything better in professional development. That's an ongoing daily event. That's just great. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, well, let's hope that the May revise will allow us to do everything that we need to do. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Yeah, aye. Everybody for it? All right, okay, we're out of here.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Appreciate it.